These things are so awesome. I just don't understand how in the world to build them. But you know what? One day I'm gonna build these myself. And that day is today.
We're gonna build a kit together, and I'm gonna take the guesswork out, I'm gonna take the difficulty out of it, and I'm gonna explain to you how you yourself can take all of this and have this for yourself. The only thing you're gonna need is a magic marker, some side flat cutters, and a blade. And of course, your parts and your manual. So without further ado, let's build together. First things first, you're gonna pull out your manual and you're gonna take your little highlighter or your Sharpie, basically any kind of pen, pencil, whatever the case is, because you're just gonna be making certain marks on this manual. So to get started, when you open up your manual, whatever kit you're going to build, you're gonna be greeted with the page that shows you all the parts in the overview of what you have to work with here. These are called runners or gates. The actual frames that hold all the individual pieces in together. If you'll notice, they are labeled. If you look on your own kit, you'll see a tab somewhere on the actual runner itself, and it's going to say A, B, C, D, or C1, C2, A1, A2, and so on and so forth, depending on the kit you purchased. But these are very important because these are going to be your guide to making things a lot easier and organized when you go to build. Second up, you're going to be greeted with your parts page, your actual instructions. This is the meat of the build. It's segmented into multiple portions. So you'll have in this kit, which is the Barbatos Lupus Rex 1/100 scale full mechanics kit. In this kit, there's an actual frame that I build first and then add all of the exterior armor pieces. So the build in this manual initially starts with just building the frame pieces first. Now in your manual, it may not show this, and that's fine. The same principles are going to apply because on your kit, you're still going to have an inner frame and you're still going to have exterior armor pieces that are going to have to attach to that frame in order to finish the kit. Looking here, it's segmented into body frame, head frame, arm frames, leg frames, waist, until you have your frame built, your inner frame. You can choose to build your kit this way if the instructions don't dictate it to be like this, but I would suggest that you follow the instructions exactly as they are so as to make your life a lot easier and less confusing. With that said, some of the language inside this kit, if not the majority of it, is in Japanese. That's not a problem because as you can see, at least the parts that you're going to be taking out of the individual runners themselves are all labeled in English. If we were to go over here and say C2, you're going to notice that there are different numbers that correspond to the actual letter of the frame itself. So when you see here D22, you're going to find your runner that is D, and then you're going to search around inside here the number 22. At that point, you're going to use your side cutters and you're going to cut out the part. These parts are all injection molded, which pretty much means there's a big mold and then they inject the plastic into it, and after everything comes out, this is what you're left with. Within this exact runner, these parts that are holding it here, these little tabs, are what you are going to cut when removing the piece. You're going to cut out, you can cut relatively close to the model kit because considering this is your first build, nub marks are not going to be a problem. We just want to get the build done. So you're going to cut it out, snip, snip, turn it around, snip, and that is how you cut out your first part, just like that. As we're going to show in the rest of the build now, there's going to be certain time lapses, and there's going to be moments where I stop to give you some instruction when it comes to how to actually do this. So once you open the box, you're going to be greeted with some bags. And inside these bags are all of the parts that you're going to be cutting out and building. This is basically your kit right here. First things first, you're going to want to open up the bags and take out all of your parts. Now, if you see here, this one is A. So look for the tab on your gates here that says A. Now that you have A, I want you to place it right here on the table in front of you, maybe to your left or right, depending on if you're a righty or a lefty. Then what we're going to do is find gate B, or in some cases, like this Barbatos Lupus Rex, it's going to have a B1 right here, as you can see. We're going to lay that right in front of us, or slightly to the left or right of us. And then you're going to have B2. So I'm going to lay that right here. C1 right here, which will go here. And we're going to follow that the entire way through. So I'm going to do a little time jump. There is all of my runners. So we have it set out from A, B1, B2, C1, C2, and so forth right down on the bottom. Right here is how your area, your workstation should look, having everything nice and organized. So what you're going to want to do is go into your manual. They're each going to be a little bit different, but they're going to follow the same format. First thing you're going to see in the first page is pictures of what the kit looks like finished. If you don't see it here, you'll see it at the end of the book or sometimes in the middle. Then you're going to see an overview of all the gates that come with the kit. And if you'll notice here, some of them have X's on them where some of the parts are. Those are parts you're not going to be using in this kit. They are spares, effectively, and you could just store them away for another day in case you have a kit that uses similar parts or you want to customize a kit using parts from another kit. If you open up the manual as well, you'll start to see all these different diagrams. Because in every manual, it's going to start off telling you what this is you're building. So right here, you've got body frame, you've got head frame, arm frames, etc., etc. Some kits, including the one that you may be building right now, do not have the option or the requirement to build the frame first. It could just be all the parts are right there and that's it. If you go in a little bit further, you've got the frame part that you build first, and then you have the exterior armor pieces that you put on secondary and attach to the frame once it's complete. In my case, I'm being told for the head to cut out B2 13 as my first part. B2 13 is part of the head. Now if you notice here, you have the head piece, but also these little sprues that are holding this part onto the gate. That's where you want to take your side cutters and you're going to want to cut out the actual part. Make sure not to cut the actual part for the model kit itself. All you are cutting is these little sprues right here. And just like that, your new addiction has started. Now you're going to have little marks here, which is fine because right now we just want to get you building a kit and that's it. So we'll worry about in a future video getting these marks off the most effective way and all of that. So now that you've gone and cut out your first part, you're going to set it right in front of you. Then you're going to go to the second part, which says here, mine is I1. On yours, it will be different, but I want you to find the second part within the head section to cut out. Whatever letter it is, find it on your alphabetically ordered gates that are on your table, pull it out, and we're going to cut it out in the same fashion. So again, you're going to cut right at the tip of the sprue and pull out your part. On my head now, I've got out my specific 4 parts that I've just cut out, and now it's requesting for me to cut out PC9. Every kit comes with a gate that is soft, and it's labeled as PC, whether it's PC1, 2, whatever the case is. Sometimes there's multiple of these depending on the kit itself, but for right now in this one, there's only one, but it works in the same form. You're gonna look for that letter when it says it inside the instruction manual, so it says PC, and then these are all numbered as well. Now, if you notice, there's multiple of the same number here. That's because you're going to use parts of these on the rest of the kit. So if it says PC9 on the head and PC9 on the arms, don't worry. It's all the same exact part. So just cut one out, and you cut them out as you go. I do not advise cutting all these out, setting them in a bag, because then you're not going to know what's what by the time the end comes, because sometimes they may look similar, but they're not exactly the same, and then you're going to have fitment issues. So this is telling me to cut out PC9. I cut out PC9 and set it right here on the table next to the head part. Another thing to keep in mind, you're going to have some parts that look very similar. If you see here, A9 and A10. Well, A9 and A10 there's a right side and a left side. It doesn't tell you one is left, one is right by saying A10L and A9R, but you're just gonna have to use your observational skills here and basically just common sense. If you see A9 is on the right side of the kit and A10 is on the left side, sort it out on here, left and right, according to how you're sitting. So if we pull out A9 and A10. We know that A9 is on the right part of the kit and A10 is on the left. So we're going to take it and move it over here to my right side or to your left, depending on if you're right-handed or left-handed. And then you're going to take the other part and put it on the other side. Notice right here, this is probably going to be one of the best ways for you to be sure that you're organized and you don't get lost or parts mixed up when you're building each individual limb. So for the head, notice how I have the face there, one part of the head here, the left side, the right side, right side, and according to how it is all going to be put together. Lay it out in a nice diagram like this in front of you on the table. So what you're going to end up with is a diagram of parts specifically for the head. Now what we do from here is start the assembly. How does the assembly work? Well, the pictures pretty much will tell you what order to start snapping things on. So if we're going to go over here to the head armor pieces first on my kit, is to do the eyes. Then we're going to take the base head here and snap that together. So if you did it like this, you should pretty much be able to tell what part is what just by looking at the pictures. You already had the letters and numbers that you had corresponding to cut it out of the gate. But if you do it like this for your first time, it's going to be very easy to know what part is what. It's basically an exploded view of the head. You don't need any glue for any of these Bandai kits for the most part. They're all pretty much just snapped together. And that's what we're going to do right now. And there you go, your first part that you have put together. These parts have little prongs followed by male and female portion of holes. You're just going to take the pieces and push it together. Sometimes it'll snap, sometimes it won't. So then from there, you take the face, push that on according to what it says here. Now notice, this is where having everything set out side by side makes your life a lot easier. At this point, you should have the head put together. And congratulations, you've just built your first part! Now what we're going to do is move on to the chest. The chest or neck section is basically going to be the same thing. So find in your manual where the chest starts. And again, you're going to pull out the corresponding letter with the corresponding number to it and start to put everything together. I'm going to speed the rest of this process up until I find perhaps a potential snag that you may run into, and I'll explain it for you. Another point of interest is the fact that sometimes you will have this little gray box that says ×2. What you're going to do here is basically just build this exactly as it says, 2 times. One for the right side, one for the left side. That's normally what it basically is. If I go over to B2, I've already got my first part built here, which means there should be another. So we're just going to build this part 2 times. Alright, so now you see in this section right here, it's telling me to take what looks like a little sticker here and stick it on there. That would be corresponding to the sticker sheet that you got, or the decal sheet that you got in the kit you're working for. So the decal sheet is exactly the same as the rest in that it's numbered with the decals. So this one's telling me here, decal number 1, which would be right here, decal number 1. I'm going to take this off and I am going to stick it onto here as it says. Once you have the waist portion done, what I like to do is move on to the legs. in your manual, it's most likely going to tell you right leg, and then it's going to tell you left leg. What you definitely don't want to do is end up confusing these parts. The parts should just snap together easily and all look uniform by the time it's done without any issue. If you're running into fitment problems, make sure you go back and take a look at what you've cut out already and make sure it's not right side piece is going on the left side piece and so on and so forth. So now let's get to building the legs. Now you should be at the point where your legs and feet are done. Or at least in my case, the inner frame is done. So you can take this time now to stick it on to the actual waist portion. The majority of them, either it's going to have this area as the male piece or the female piece. Regardless of the fact, you're going to end up pushing these legs onto the kit itself. And now the reason why I like doing the legs first is because I can stand the kit up and I can begin to see the shape taking place. Now it's on to doing the arms. So now that we have our completed frame done, arms are snapped on, everything else is there intact, feet, etc., etc., what we could start doing is moving on to putting the armor pieces, the exoskeleton, if you will, on this frame. So that's what we're going to do next. Since we already did it on the head, we're going to now move on to the chest area and put all of the armor pieces on the chest. Now that we have the chest complete, we're going to move on to putting on the armor pieces on the arms themselves. Now that we have all our armor pieces on, we're going to start moving on now to the waist and then to the legs. So now we've come to the point where you've gotten all the body armor pieces on, and you basically have the kit, or I should say the whole body of it, complete. So now you can step back and begin to see exactly what it is you have that you're working with. From this point on, the next step, at least what I like to do, is save the accessories for last. I'm going to start with any of the weaponry that comes with this kit, which would be this gigantic mace. So what we're going to do is take this and set it aside, and now it's time to move on to the backpack and the other accessories that are here. So now we're at the point where the kit is completed. You have all of your exterior portions on, all your accessories are built, and what you're left with is your work of art. One thing to keep in mind is you'll have multiple hands. The different hands, depending on the type of kit, are for holding different types of accessories or weapons. Right here I have these claw hands on, which I think are completely awesome, but they won't work with holding this gigantic mace. So for that, I would have to pop this hand off, cut out the hand that is used for that mace, and now that is basically it for your first Gundam build. Now if you'll notice, in this entire build, it was kept very simple. All we used were the nippers, and that was it. So for now, thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you. If it did, please like, subscribe, share, and on top of that too, comment below if there's anything you want to see for future videos. And if you have any questions about your particular build, feel free to send me a direct message on Instagram at Curioventura, and I'll do my best to answer those as quickly as possible. I love hearing from you always. I love the fact that I have your support. It means the world to me, and I hope you have a great day. And with that in mind, my pet Dirt has a special trick for you. Bye!